Calling all pet parents, welcome to Tip the Dish, another show by the Pet Shop Girls, where we're dishing tips on natural pet care.
Tip the dish of the Pet Shop Girls, gonna start the show. Tip the dish of the Pet Shop Girls, watch the chaos grow. Tip the dish, we bring the thrills. Pet Shop Girls is where time stands still.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Sherry.
And I'm Carly.
Welcome to Tip the Dish podcast. We have a special guest today, everybody. We're going to time travel back to vet school with Dr. Marlene Siegel. So Dr. Marlene Siegel is a pioneering veterinarian and visionary in holistic pet care. With over 40 years of experience, she combines advanced integrative medicine and cutting-edge diagnostics with natural wellness solutions to provide truly comprehensive care. Dr. Siegel, welcome to Tip the Dish podcast.
Hey, that's a tongue twister in it. Tip the dish. I gotta
Yeah.
really appreciate that. That's a great name. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Yes. So we've got Dr. Marlene Siegel here all the way from Florida. So in sunny Florida today for you? Yeah.
It's
Okay.
gorgeous.
Lucky. We just got snow yesterday. So good times up here in Saskatchewan.
Right. Yeah. Carly's in Canada and I'm in Texas. So we're covering many points of North America.
Yeah, exactly.
Dr. Siegel, could you start by sharing your story with our dishers? We know that your path to integrative medicine began with your horse, Lily. What was it about that experience that led you to explore holistic animal care?
So I've always been a very spiritual and very tuned in individual. But when you're in school, you're taught a mantra. And so I graduated and I was part of the mantra. And then I was showing horses with my daughters, and we had a riding accident with my youngest daughter and one of the show horses. When the horse reared in the air with my daughter on board, no one had taught her to let go of the reins and bail off to safety. Number one cause of a rider's death is a horse crushing their rider when they fall on them. So Lily, the horse, had the presence of mind to actually squat down on one hind leg and push herself as hard as she could possibly push while she was being pulled over by my daughter, who was hanging from the reins, dangling in the saddle. She tried as hard as she could to push herself to the opposite direction of where my daughter was falling. But when they hit the ground, you couldn't see space between my daughter and the horse. When I jumped over the railing of the arena, I got to my daughter. The horse had already caught her breath and got back up again, and my daughter wasn't moving. So I really didn't know what I was going to find when I got there. And I was just praying as I was running. It all happened in a flash of a second, but it felt like it was an eternity. And my daughter opened her eyes and she was fine, thank God. However, when we got home a couple of weeks later, the horse had a couple of more incidences. And so I had equine vets come out to look at her, and they said, we don't really know what's wrong with her, but we can tell you that she is not safe to ride ever again. She'll never be shown again. And your choices are, you can put her out to a pasture for the rest of her life. She's 7 years old, Canadian national champion and U.S. national open champion. But you could put her down or you could put her out to a pasture. And I was not willing to accept that answer. Aside from her credentials and her age, that horse saved my daughter's life, and I was going to fix that horse. So I think for all of us that enter in this new realm of awakening, I think we all have something that pushes us. Maybe it's our own health. Maybe it's a family member. For me, it was a horse. But we have some kind of a motivation that is not willing to accept what the norm is, because that's somebody else's belief system. And I'm going to now call a belief system BS. So it doesn't mean, there's two different languages there, but let's just say that a belief system is a thought we keep repeating. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong. It's just the thought we keep repeating. So then at some point we have to look at that thought and say, does that thought still serve me in the path that I am currently taking? And if the answer is yes, keep thinking it. The answer is no, it's time to seek another belief system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, and you just like pet parents out there today, nobody wants to give up on their animals. And Lily, as a champion, and after this, when it kind of launched your journey into integrative medicine, she's a champion again, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
she steered
yeah,
me in a direction that I would never have imagined. I had
yeah,
a busy practice. I'm homeschooling two children. To take on one more thing on my plate was really not in my agenda. And
yeah.
yet, when something motivates you because the passion it just becomes who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was going to find answers even where they didn't exist. And
Yeah.
back then, we're talking, there was no integrated veterinary medicine. There was no roadmap for me to follow. I was actually starting to tap into functional medicine on the human side, which was brand new for them as well. And then extrapolating the information I was learning from the human side and then having to apply that to animals. So truly, when you talk about a pioneer, I didn't sign up for that, but I went down that road willingly and headlong, willing to make a difference. And
Yeah.
originally it was just for Lily. And then, of course, it started affecting my practice, my way of life, how I raised my family, how I lived my life. It just became who I was.
Well, and I think that just confirms that our animals are teachers, right?
Yeah.
And we learn from them. So Lily was a fantastic teacher to get you onto the path of integrative veterinary. So I want to take our listeners back. As we said, we're going to go back in time to vet school because Sherry and I both own and operate natural pet stores where we are regularly talking about the importance of a biologically appropriate diet, looking at the whole body, understanding root cause. Rather than treating symptoms, we want to treat the whole body. And so one thing that we're regularly asked is, why do you say the opposite of what my vet says? So I would like, especially when it comes to food. So many vets recommend the ultra-processed dry kibble that they carry in their clinics. And pet parents are often confused why their traditional vet is recommending an ultra-processed diet versus an integrative vet or a natural pet store who is saying, hey, feed your animal the diet they were intended to eat, which is a raw food diet. So help us understand. Take us back to vet school with you and tell us about the training that you as a traditional vet would have received on nutrition when you were in vet school.
I'm going to take you back a little further than that so we really understand even how the vet schools got to do what they did. So there is something called the Flexner Report. This was a report that was commissioned by the Rockefellers and Carnegie to understand what was being taught in the human medical schools. And their objective was to start changing what was being taught to the humans in medical school so that they could then take over, monopolize, make it a more pharmaceutical. Because back in the day, there were colleges teaching acupuncture and homeopathy and a lot of alternative things. I mean, think about chiropractors. When they first started, they were blackballed. They were told that they were quacks and they had to fight
Witchcraft.
really
Yep.
hard. It was. And they had to fight
Yep.
really hard to establish themselves with credentials, which now they do. So when the Flexner Report came out, it was a way for these large money individuals to be able to control. So they said, oh, look, we'll donate a lot of money to your college. And we would really like to, as a consequence, we would love to have one of our board members sitting on your board. And slowly they infiltrated their way in. And of course, they're funding massive amounts of money. And so if a college didn't want to lose their funding, they allowed these people to come in and influence their board. And it was really over a relatively short period of time that these other colleges had to close down because people who graduated couldn't get a job because they weren't accredited and they weren't seen as being real doctors. That same influence made its way through into the veterinary colleges. So now we have the big box companies like Purina and like Hills, who come in and they sound wonderful. Oh, they're doing
Yep.
so much science and so much research, and they're doing symptom management, and it sounds wonderful. And they paid for our parties and they gave us free food. And we had all of a few hours of lecture, which was really telling us why their diet was so fantastic. There was never, ever a conversation about species appropriate food or really understanding root cause medicine. So what I practice is bioregulatory medicine. It's a very ancient term that basically says we're going to understand the biology of the body. How do these systems work? So that we can then identify the root cause of the problem so we can fix it at the root cause of the problem.
Yep.
What we're taught in veterinary school is to name it, blame it, and then have a pharmaceutical or a surgical intervention. And it's not that that's horrible, it's just not fixing the problem. And in the past 25 years, since the amount of toxins have increased so dramatically into our food supply and our water, environmentally, now we're seeing the most chronic degenerative diseases that we've ever seen in the history of mankind. So we can no longer stop at symptom management because we're seeing turbo cancers now. It's not even, when I first graduated, we saw cancer once or twice a year. It was not on my wheelhouse. I didn't bother learning and studying anything about cancer because 1 or 2 cases a year, it wasn't worth it. I just referred that to a specialist. But now in the past 15, 20 years, the numbers have gone up. And, now that's primarily what I do is cancer and degenerative diseases in my practice because we don't vaccinate very much. So so now our cancers have even shifted to no longer being a cancer that we can manage or cure to seeing turbo cancers, which are really requiring much more in the way of an integrative approach to get ahead of these things.
I heard a statistic, actually, sorry, Sherry, I heard a statistic regarding canine cancer, that it is 1 in every 1.59 dogs that now have cancer. And the commonality is diet. Because really, this is something that I say to my pet parents all the time in my store. You don't see lions and tigers and wolves in zoos that we have put into captivity eating kibble. They eat their biologically appropriate diet. Domesticated dogs and cats are the only species on the planet that are forced to eat an ultra-processed, non-biologically appropriate diet. And so,
I was going to say, do you believe that this rise in cancer is due to the ultra-processed diet?
There's that's part of it, but it is part of it. So we have toxicity coming in through the diet. It's not just highly processed. It's full of hormones, chemicals, pesticides, glyphosate. So it's high in sugar. So yes, that is one problem. But we also have toxic water, and we have toxic air, and we have toxic cleaning products, and we have toxic products that we put on the skin. And don't forget the ants that live in our brains. Those are automatic negative thoughts. So it's all of it. All of that comes together to make the perfect storm to create this chronic degenerative disease, this chronic inflammation, this chronic issues where the body just can't keep up with the amount of toxins in the kidney, in the liver, the skin, the lymphatics, everywhere. It's just overloaded. And at some point, we can't survive that. Now we're going to start having symptom suppression. The way I explain it is think about a cup of water. If the cup is empty, then the space in that cup is the reserves that your body has to deal with toxicity, because we've never lived in a non-toxic world. But now it's so much more that now the cup is not only full, it's spilling over. And that's why we're seeing the turbo cancers. It's the accumulation of toxins. It's the lifestyles that we have, which we are so sedentary. We're light deficient because people aren't getting out in light, and we are light beings. We're designed to function with light. We're also inundated with electromagnetic pollution, which is affecting ourselves cellularly, and it's affecting our mitochondria. So the easiest way to describe what is dis-ease, because there is no disease, there is dis-ease, the body not being in balance. And there's really 3 simple causes: deficiency of essential nutrients, an excess of toxicity that the body can no longer tolerate, mitochondrial dysfunction. The mitochondria are the energy packets that make energy, and communicate between themselves and the microbiome to dictate genetic expression. And then the fourth part actually is trapped emotions that are associated with dis-ease. So when you put those four pieces together, and that is the definition of why we have dis-ease.
I love how you package that. And wow, we could go down a rabbit hole on each one of those things. But let's bring it back to veterinarians and what they're recommending. Can you talk more about these big corporations that are buying up small veterinary practices, and then they have quotas, from what I understand, on how much food they need to sell? Can you elaborate on any of that?
Well, I'm not in a corporate business and I don't go into their business dealings, but I have heard the same thing, that they have quotas on how many x-rays. Each profit center of the hospital, radiology, surgery, medicine, over-the-counter products, all of it has a number associated with it. And in order to be profitable, then they have to meet those quotas. So having a successful business is a great thing. Having a successful business at the expense of your patient is not a good thing. So I want to make that differentiation. You know, we have these corporations that they aren't doing the best medicine, and they are big, luggy machines that can't pivot quickly because they are so big. It's the same thing with universities. They can't make quick pivots because they have so much paperwork they have to go through. But individual practices like myself, I own the practice. There's no other decision maker. If I find a new modality that is working, I can buy it and implement it day one. So all the veterinarians that I've ever met in my industry, and I'm practicing 40 years, they are the greatest group of people that I've ever had the honor of serving with. They all have good intentions. They don't go into this industry and say, oh, I can't wait to hurt animals.
Right.
You know, they go because they want to do the best thing. In fact, veterinarians have the highest rate of suicide of any industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of the compassion fatigue. You know, when something goes wrong, the average unconscious person wants to blame and shame somebody. They don't want to take responsibility for the fact that through their uneducatedness, not maliciously, but they're the ones that created the problem because they didn't know what to do better. So instead of saying, wow, let me learn how to do better, there's a big population out there that just wants to blame and shame whoever tries to help them. Go on my website and see the 1-star reviews on Google. And they're very obvious. We have the 1 stars and we have the 5 stars. And there is a population. I call them the pet owner, are the 1-star reviews. And these people, they don't want to do anything different. They don't want to learn what's really causing the problem. They just want somebody to fix it. And if you fire them, then they're angry and they're going to write your 1-star reviews and they threaten you. They go, if you don't do this or that, you know, we're going to blackmail you. And I go ahead. You are helping me to identify my tribe. So it's okay. You go do your thing. I'm going to bless you. And hopefully one day, maybe we'll be on the same page. And if not, it's okay too. Right. Because I'm not making judgments. I'm just saying that's who you are. And that's where you are right now. Like we all have been in our own little places at any given time. You guys have chosen to evolve. You have chosen to take your consciousness and go to a higher level. I've done the same thing. I've made that my mission and my passion to not only help pet parents, but also to help fellow veterinarians who they know that what they have isn't working anymore. Our toolkit just isn't sufficient in the Western world. So in order to start meeting the challenges that we have to expand that toolkit. We have to understand the biology so we can actually fix the root cause of the problem. We have to learn how to identify it and fix it at the root cause. And that requires a different mindset. So it is what it is. You know, it's not right or wrong. It just is what it is.
It is. And you know what? It makes me think about, like, oftentimes when customers come into my store and their furry guy is experiencing some sort of an issue. And you've talked about, like, we can't just continue to manage symptoms. We have to treat the root cause. And I explain this same thing. The way that I explain it to my customers oftentimes is we know that a house is on fire because we see smoke. But if we just go wave the smoke, we got rid of the smoke, but we have not addressed the fire inside that is causing the smoke. So we need to go put the fire out. And oftentimes I also say to my customers that 99.9% of the time, diet will be will be that turning point where we will see a huge difference in our animals. I would like for you to kind of help us understand why, when pet parents are visiting their traditional vets, who they have believed what they have been told over and over and over again in vet school, why is the vet recommending that ultra-processed dry diet, and we, on the other side, are recommending the raw food, the biologically appropriate diet? Because that's oftentimes the question I get from my customers is, well, why are you telling me to feed raw? Because my vet told me that raw is dangerous and raw does this, and raw, all of the wives' tales out there about how awful raw is. Why are you telling me the opposite of my vet? So can you help our listeners understand why their vets are telling the opposite of what an integrative veterinarian would say, or a natural pet store?
Well, for the last 100 years, our society has taught out of us the ability to have critical thinking. And even as doctors, in the olden days, we had a lot of critical thinking because you had to be a problem solver and you had to be an investigator. But in the last, I'd say, 100 years, people have been taught the name it, blame it, and come up with a pharmaceutical without really understanding the biology or the root cause. So these veterinarians that are coming out of school have been taught to believe a certain way, and whole food, raw food diets have been vilified in the veterinary schools. And it isn't not until something happens in your life that you go, wait a minute, let me use some critical thinking. I mean, for me, if I want to get an answer, I'm going to look at nature. How does nature solve a particular problem?
Yes.
Well, like you said, there is no model in nature that makes kibble in the wild.
Right.
None, zero. If nature intended animals to eat a kibble diet, they would have created a model for that in the wild, and they didn't. In fact, dogs and cats don't have amylase in their saliva. They were literally not designed to chew their food thoroughly
Or
and
eat
begin
carb.
carbohydrate digestion in the mouth like we do. We have amylase. We all know we're supposed to chew our food until it's pancake batter. So then when you swallow it, your carbohydrate digestion has begun, and then your protein digestion begins in the stomach. Well, in the wild, animals that run something down, kill it, wrestle with it, they're going to attract a lot of other predators. So if they don't learn how to tear, gulp, and swallow and quickly stuff themselves when food is available and then go back to their den or their cave or wherever they're safe to do the digestion, they're probably not going to pass their gene pool on. So they were literally designed differently. And no one has to take my word for it. Watch National Geographics, right?
Yes.
It's there. It's right in front for us. They're filming it for us. So where is our critical thinking ability to go, gee, my dog is a scavenger carnivore. My cat is an obligate carnivore. What do carnivores do? And granted, we're not going to go out hunting Bambi and dressing that on the table, but there are companies like my own who have gone away from the norm and are offering a species appropriate, balanced, grass-fed, grass-finished diet without synthetic nutrients. And I want to mention this very carefully because when I first was looking for a company that I could align with, I approached all the leading companies, and nobody at that time would make a diet to my specifications, which was grass-fed, grass-finished, and nothing synthetic. And they couldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. And so that's really the motivation that I did for making my own line, was because my patients could not afford another drop in that cup. They were already spilling over, and I could not add to it.
Yep.
So we not only have to educate on what is a good raw diet, but what is a balanced raw diet. I just had a patient come in and they were feeding ground beef and whole eggs. Well, it was better than kibble, but it's not balanced.
Right.
So they didn't understand there's no bone in there. There's no organ meat in there. So this is a education process. And even though there's a lot of companies now jumping on the raw bandwagon, we still have to educate our clients on what is a balanced, high quality raw diet and be able to read the labels.
Yes. It's, I love that you talk about if we were to watch wild animals and how they eat, because again, that's something that I say to my customers all the time. When was the last time you saw a wolf dragging off a bag of kibble to their den? When was the last time you saw a group of wolves standing around a barbecue cooking their supper? Like that's just not the way that they eat. So, and I love that you're talking about that you went and said, this is the type of diet that our animals need, because I talk about that too. It's got to be complete and balanced. It's got to have everything they need and the right amounts of everything they need. Does it have to be complete and balanced every single day? No. I mean, I could survive on Doritos and a Slurpee for a day. It's not going to kill me, right? But it's not that I can't live on that for a lifetime. So I love the way that you think. I love what you're doing for the industry.
So why is it that a lot of veterinarians traditionally trained discourage raw diets outright? Is it because they're told to do that?
Yeah, we that's what I said in originally, was that that's their belief system. That's the BS that they've been told.
Yeah.
And they told it over and over and over again. And they're living in a world where that's what they're surrounded with. So they don't have an opportunity to learn any different. And it's till something happens that makes you question the narrative, then you don't change the narrative, right? Something has to make that pot uncomfortable.
It's like saying a McDonald's cheeseburger is better for us to eat than a salad. It doesn't make any sense.
We get it because we're already awakened. But for those who haven't got there yet, and so many people are so busy and so distracted, we just had an election. People were so polarized that they missed the whole point. What's the whole point? We want a country that is safe, that our children can grow up in, that our children can be healthy in. That's not what we have right now. So let's forget politics. Let's forget the polarization. Let's get healthy animals. Let's get healthy people. Let's get a world where we can all get along and have resources and a healthy planet. That's what we need.
I think too, with more than 2,500 veterinary clinics being owned by Mars Pet Care in the US, the message is very clear from the top down. You sell our food and you don't encourage that other stuff. Yeah. Because that other stuff is not on their menu. And that other stuff, they have not figured out a way to put their profits above our pets if they were making a raw food diet. But they have found the way to put their profits above our pets by selling a bag of corn and fillers and byproducts. Anyways, don't get me started.
Yeah. So I'm going to offer something that probably will surprise everybody. But a very wise veterinarian, Dr. Alan Schoen, who is the father of veterinary acupuncture, many, many moons ago said to me, the answer is not creating a fight. The answer is not going to battle and poke the dragon. The answer is, how can we extend our hand and say, look, we are on the same team. We're looking around us and saying, we need to have a different strategy. Can we find a way to work together? What would that look like? And that's what I want to propose. Yes, we can sit there and bash all the different companies and we can create a lot of anger and distension. I don't want to do that. Right. I want to find a way that we can model what is good and truth, and then invite others to join us so that at the end of the day, we all agree, what is our outcome that we want? It doesn't matter what you believe in. It doesn't matter where you come from, what your socioeconomic groups are. How can we work together to have healthier pets, better longevity for pets, for people, and for the planet? Because when we make better decisions on what we're doing, our epigenetics change and everything improves. One of the things that we saw through COVID, and I was not a proponent of lockdown, but it was interesting that the waterways got cleaner, the air pollution went down, a lot of things changed, and
the planet
people were going out gardening. So
there
were a lot of positives that if you wanted to sit there and go, wow, what was the blessing that came? And that's another thing I'm passionate about, is no matter what I experience, even if it's ouchy, I am looking for the blessing in there, not the lesson necessarily, but the blessing. Yeah. What is it going to help me do better by seeing the contrast? So for me, when I see these companies, they are the contrast. They are helping me to realize what I don't want to do. What can I do that is positive? What can I do that inspires people, that helps people to become more awake, that helps them to have critical thinking? And then that's what my mission is. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes, yes. And to your point of working together, which I love that mantra, leads me to my next question. So, pet parents that are becoming awake, that may feel caught between following their traditional vet's advice and exploring natural options, how can they start an open conversation with their vet about a more integrative approach?
Well, it starts with education. So, in order to have an intelligent conversation, people have to become educated. So, like my Empowered Pet Parent course and the Transforming Vet Medicine course, it's all about educating people. And I have case after case after case presentation with documentation, with lab results, with all the evidence to show what I'm doing. And at some point, you can't deny that, right? I'm doing reversal of diabetes, we're reversing skin disease, we're reversing the C word. And how am I doing that? So, educating people on how they can be empowered, because the solution isn't outside of us for anything. There is no magic person that's going to come in. There's no Wizard of Oz that's going to, we're peeling back the curtain,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And the answer lies in us. We have to become educated as individuals. We have to take our power back and use our critical thinking skills so that we can have discernment in what we're being told. So if somebody tells you something, do some fact finding and find out, is that the truth? Is that their truth, or is it something that I want to have as my truth?
Mhm.
And as we go through that process, it is a little more work. It is a little more energy that we have to expend. But oh my gosh, the rewards afterwards
Worth
are
it.
so immense. And you can't change everybody. I can't change everybody. That's not my job. I'm here to light a path, to help people who want to start learning have that opportunity, and then help coach them as they're starting to make those transitions. So, what are the choices that we have? I actually tell them to take a piece of paper and fold it in half. Column A are all the things that you're learning from me or anybody else that sound like those are things that we should be doing, but you're not doing them yet. Column B are all the things you should not be doing that you have now learned about, but you're still doing them because no one told you how to do something differently. And then you start picking one thing off of column A to start doing, one thing off of column B to stop doing. And then within really a very short period of time, you've made massive improvements to your health and your pet's health and your family and the world around you.
I love it. You know what? I think kind of one thing that I tell our customers is you need to find a doctor, your veterinarian, that aligns with your beliefs. So
100%.
you said it much more eloquently than I did, but that's essentially at the end of the day, that's what I'm telling my customers is
Not
that
everybody has access to that, especially if you're in a small town, though. So,
However,
do.
there are
Yes.
remote clinics or there are doctors that will do remote consultations. So that's
Absolutely.
typically what I tell them to do, that if you can't find the doctor in your city or town that aligns with your beliefs on how you want to care for your animal, you can work with an integrative veterinarian through a network of them. I think it is the American Integrative Veterinary Association. I always look it up for my customers and I'm like, call here, see if you can find your doctor, because they do need to align with your beliefs. I also love that you call it the C word, because I do too. I call it the C word that rhymes with dancer, because I don't even want the words to come out of my lips. So,
Yeah.
you talk
So-
about your courses too, and I love that because I wanted to bring up the fact that you do have a course specific for pet parents, the empowered pet parent. And I love that name because that's what I tell people we're doing all the time. We're empowering pet parents.
Absolutely.
So you have that course available on your website. You do also have your course that is for any of our vet listeners, any of our listeners who are vets today thinking maybe there is a different path for me. But you also have a free ebook available for pet parents if you're looking at doing more of an integrative or natural approach to your animal's care.
Yeah, we just want people to start with becoming educated. You don't have to make massive changes in your life day one. First, start using your critical thinking skills and learn. But I want to go back to something that you said, which is so critical, is when you are that lone warrior and you're out there by yourself, it gets pretty lonely out there. There's no need to be alone anymore. There are book groups, there are organizations, it's our tribe. And that's what you need to do, is you need to find your tribe.
Yep.
And you do that through joining organizations that align with your thoughts. And that's not a bad thing. That's actually a very good thing. That doesn't make others wrong. It just says that they're in a different mind frame than you are. And so we don't have to judge anybody. We just have to say, I agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And when did we lose that ability to do that? That was debate club, right? You
Yeah,
got
yeah.
to debate something, and didn't mean you have to hate the other person. It's just, we all have the things that make us go in a circle, right? And so
You're on a different part of the path. Like we actually, again, in my store, I created what I refer to as the evolution of the pet parent. And it's where we all start. Where we all start is we all start feeding dry, ultra-processed dog food because we've been told for 80 years that that's dog food. And then we evolve and we continue to evolve. There's multiple steps in that evolution to the point that you become an educator of natural pet care and biologically appropriate diets. But that doesn't happen overnight. But there are people out there like us and many more like us that are showing that we can look at the whole body instead of just treating the symptoms.
Yeah. So with my course, I actually teach the pet parent how to understand deficiency and toxicity, how to test for it so that they can go to their veterinarian and ask for the right things, how to do a species appropriate diet, how to heal the gut, how to work on the microbiome, and how to do detoxification. It's an area that I'd like to just mention real briefly because we aren't taught detoxification in school. In fact, I have yet to have a veterinarian who can tell me the 6 organs of elimination if they haven't listened to my lecture already. So we're just not taught that way. We're not taught to think in biological systems. And yet we hear about Herxheimer reactions. We hear about animals that get treatment and they get more sick. And it happens to people as well. The reason they're getting more sick is because you're releasing toxins, you're releasing abnormal tissue, and it has nowhere to go because your organs of elimination can't get rid of them. So these are really key principles to understanding how do we actually start to heal. And then I get into the autonomic nervous system, I get into emotions, we get into the mitochondria. It's an amazing course that could be applicable to any species, right? And so it's helping people to have a roadmap. They need to know where to start. And there's never a wrong time. So a lot of times people will come into my practice and they go, oh my God, I've been doing everything wrong. And they want to blame and shame themselves. And I said, no, you're here in divine timing. Everything happens at the right time, at the right place, for the right reasons. And for me, I look at these animals that they come in with, and I know in all my heart that pet is not an accident. So when pet owners are talking to me, I go, you have that pet in your life at this time with a particular challenge for a reason. So like you said earlier, they're here to be our guides. They're our soul angels, or our soul pets. And when we look at life as everything is a message, everything is guidance system, it takes on a whole new way of living, because now you don't get stuck in the victim mentality. You go, oh, I must have gotten a little off the main path, and so I'm getting some turbulence. Maybe I need to have a redirection and get back on path. And it literally, for me, that's what it is. When I start to get a lot of, I call it resistance that's happening in my life, then I recognize it as resistance and I go, oh, what do I need to do to get back into flow? And that's as simple as it gets. How much resistance do we need to get back into flow? Everybody has their own level that they have to have in order for them to make a change. For me, I've learned that it doesn't have to be a lot of resistance before I go, oh, I need to make some modifications here and get back into flow. But
we
for
just
others,
have to go around the rock in the river.
Right. But for others, they have to have the boulder land on them and they finally go, I give up. What do you want me to do? You know, and it's not right or wrong. It's just where you are.
And your pet parent course is available for anybody. They can go onto your website and they can, whether they're a client or not, they can do that. But the ebook is kind of like step 1. It's kind of a mini condensed version of that course. And then if they want to continue to expand their knowledge, then they can subscribe to the course.
Absolutely. So it's a way to dip your toe in and go, oh, do I align with this idea of thinking or not? If it aligns with you, then you want to do the deep dive. And then the third aspect of that is I do I do one-to-one coaching as well. So I never put product names in my courses because companies change and times change and new things come out. So, this is a timeless course and it's going to be out there for perpetuity. So I want to make sure that I can always guide people as to what's current today for solutions. And it does change very rapidly.
Perfect. So then where would, sorry, go ahead, Sherry.
I was going to say, so where can our dishers find more information about you and your courses?
I love that, dishers. Very simple. The hub of everything me is DR, like in doctor, and then my name, marlenesiegel.com. So drmarlenesiegel.com. And our online store is there. My food line is there. The educational stuff is there. There's a fascia decompression course, which is amazing. But you have to start with get the basics right first. You have to build the house and have the foundation good before you start putting in the fancy things inside. So there's a lot of information. I'm constantly adding things. Constantly.
Love it.
I am so, yes, we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
I am so glad we connected and I have learned about you and met you. You are amazing. I love your positive outlook on life, pet care, self-care, all the things. This has been an action-packed episode. I'm going to have to go back and re-listen to it myself. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And I can't thank you enough.
Yes. I
You're
have
very welcome.
one more before we send you on your busy day. If there was
Sure.
one piece of advice that you could give pet parents who really want to advocate for their pet's health and they feel overwhelmed or they feel uncertain about going against the grain or about the recommendations of their traditional vet, what piece of advice would you give them to start their path of natural pet care?
Own your power. Quit giving your power away. Own your power and then start educating yourself. And that could include even looking at what's happening in the Western or allopathic world and then compare that to things that you see in the more integrated world or the bioregulatory world. And then just start introducing little concepts into your own life. Because as you make those changes for yourself and or your pet, then you start to see the outcomes. I'm approaching 70. And I am more vibrant and more energetic.
Wait, what? Okay, I know that this podcast isn't completely on video. We are trying to put video clips out there, but you look fantastic.
Thank you. I have no plastic surgery, and I have a little moisturizer on my face right now that I put on before I came down. But this is me. I'm almost 70, and
wow.
It's not just what you look like, it's how you feel. I just traveled to Thailand and back, 33 hours flight to get there. I did a 1-hour lecture, partied for a couple of days, and then flew back. I never had jet lag. Literally either direction, never had jet lag. I landed early on a Thursday morning back home. I worked all day on Thursday, and then I went that night to Weston Price Conference. And then I worked the floor for 3 days. I never got tired, never had jet lag, but I know how to biohack what I'm doing for my body, and I do it. I make those efforts to take care of my body like a biological machine, and it pays off. So my mind,
Stop
my energy.
it! Like I'm still flabbergasted by the fact that I thought you were in your 40s, and when you're talking about your daughter and your horse, and I'm like still thinking your daughter is 11. So I'm like, obviously she's in her 40s. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Amazing.
My girls are late 20s and 30.
Wow.
My oldest is turning 31 next month. So yeah, it's how do you want to age? Do you want to age gracefully? We're taught,
like you, obviously.
mindset.
I want to.
Right. We're taught that when you get old, you get decrepit and your medicine box gets full of stuff to make you feel better. I have 0 medications, 0, but I have herbs. I live in a food forest. So I'm out constantly gathering the natural medicine from my garden and then utilizing that. So when I traveled with a bottle of olive oil tincture, olive leaf tincture, sorry. And I also had acorn tincture that I traveled with, along with my vitamins and my essential nutrients. So I took all of that with me. So I had structured water that I have a little pitcher so I can make structured water while I'm out. And like, again, it's biohacking. Oh, can I make one plug? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I have to say
Yeah.
this. I have been commissioned to do a pet documentary on pet health and longevity. So we'll be starting filming early 2025. And I'm so excited. And I'm really looking forward to being able to share the story of what pet longevity. It's going to be called Forever Faithful.
Oh, I love it.
That's awesome. Well,
Congratulations.
we'll have to have you back on before it launches to maybe give us some more insights on that.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
great things happening in the world. And can I do two pearls since I just did one?
Yeah,
the other
sure.
one is for each person listening to take a moment and ask yourself, what are your passions? What are your talents? What is it that really makes a difference for you in the world? And how can you use that to give back to the world around you so that at the end of the day, you've made the world a better place because you're in it? And what does that look like? And then do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you
well,
so much.
This was so awesome. So I'm so glad that we got the chance to connect. We will definitely stay in touch. I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy, busy schedule. And I appreciate all of the knowledge that you've given our dishers. And we will make sure to blast this out far and wide because you've got very important things to say. You're making important differences in the world. So I will just say thank you again for everything that you've given us, everything that you've shared with our audience. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing the documentary.
Yes.
Let's do more.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much. We will catch everybody on the next episode.
All right, then, dishers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that's a wrap, dishers.
Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe.
Go ahead, hit all the buttons.
You know you want to.
Keep coming back for the best bites of advice for you and your pets. Tip the dish.